Hey, it's Tom. Okay, in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack some street hypnosis. Street hypnosis is cool, it's become a bit more popular, and this is a video I found on YouTube. It's by a hypnotist by the name of Wayne Donnelly, and Wayne's based in Sydney, does a great job of doing some street hypnosis, and we're going to watch. Hopefully you've already watched the first video of Wayne doing what he's doing. What I want to show in this video is unpack some of the processes that are going on basically behind the scenes that people are not typically aware of when they're watching somebody do street hypnosis or hypnotizing somebody. We're going to focus on what Wayne's doing, some of the effects that are being created, how that's occurring, and why the sequence of hypnotic inductions and trance effects are occurring the way that they are. Okay, let's get to it.
My name is Wayne Donnelly and we're going to hypnotise some folk, so come and join us. Who else would like to experience a little bit of what we're doing here about discovering the power that is in your mind?
So the first thing, and now we're joining Wayne at some point where he's already picked up a crowd, and he's got somebody here who looks like they've chosen to step forward, or they're about to step forward to do a street hypnosis type demonstration. What's cool is Wayne's already started off with the frame that this is about basically demoing the power of, or the power that is in your mind, and that's a key thing, setting up the context for the work that he's about to do.
If you'd just like to play along with us.
Now he starts off, and this is a key thing, saying, so if you just like to play along with us, and points to our subject guy. And the key thing with a lot of hypnosis and this stuff is this idea that somebody is stepping in and will vividly imagine and follow a set of instructions that somebody's giving. The context marker of saying if you just play along with us, setting a nice easy frame to begin with, that the individual essentially can participate in this, and as you're about to see, he sets it up so that it's done as a series of experiments, if you will, things to try on, not that it's either or that, you know, it's a pass or fail situation.
This is Fee, my name is Wayne, and yeah, have you ever been hypnotised before? Would you like to experience some hypnosis? Fantastic. Well, what we like you to check out first is how powerful the mind is with your own suggestions.
So he leads there a moment ago with, you know, have you been hypnotized before? And he leads with a nod up and down of yes. The guy initially is already, in terms of beginning to calibrate, Wayne is to this chap, holding his attention, fixating his attention on him, and beginning the process of bypassing the critical faculty. All the standard stuff that, if you're familiar with normal hypnosis, this is the kind of things that are bread and butter of the typical hypnotic process. Now, what's good is he's starting off as well here in terms of going on about the power of suggestions in your mind. And this whole idea that it's really about him taking on the suggestions. If he really absorbs the instructions that Wayne's giving him and participates in letting those suggestions fully sink in and doing them, then he's going to be a very good hypnotic subject.
So just put your hands in front of you, palms hard, pressed hard together, and then what I'd like to do is interlock the fingers, lift your hand up, put up the 2 pointer fingers, spread them out, and just... Now
we start off with a basic suggestibility test. Setting it up from the point of view of seeing if the guy can follow along. Really, it's really, suggestibility tests aren't about how hypnotizable somebody is. Of course, that's how traditional hypnotists want to present it, and in this case Wayne's doing an initial test, ensuring that before he gets into his grand finale with this guy, of getting him to have his hand stuck to his side and be unable to remove it, or so it would seem, that the guy has fully complied and participated with every suggestion that he needs him to in order for that effect to occur. This whole suggestibility test is actually a lot more physiological component. So straight away he gets him to slam his hands, in terms of clasp your hands tightly, and if you try it out and push in on those hands and raise your arm up towards your chin, extend your 2 index fingers and the 2 of them point together. Now as you continue to push in on those hands, you'll notice that your 2 fingers naturally want to be drawn together because there's a level of force there. Now if you relax your muscles, so your biceps, your triceps, your chest and your fingers, so that it can be comfortably relaxed, they will stay open. They don't need to close. In this case though, our subject here is tensing. We can see the tension in terms of on his chest and his muscles, so he's participating with that. But now Wayne's going to get him to focus completely on the space between his fingers. And as you're about to hear him say, imagine magnets between them. Of course, what do magnets do? When they're attractive to each other, they're going to pull strongly together. And that's what he wants him to do, to seed all these suggestions. But of course, the bigger pattern here that we need to point out is that a huge part of being successful in straight hypnosis or any type of hypnosis is getting the momentum going behind this idea that something is about to happen or something has just happened. Those two ideas, something is about to happen or something has just happened, from the subject's point of view, that acts as a convincer that says, hey, something's just gone on here that I wasn't expecting. I must be hypnotized. And therefore everything else that the guy is saying, in this case that Wayne is saying, is something that he will follow because he's already hypnotized, or so he thinks.
Just look at the space between the fingers and focus completely on the space between the fingers, and imagine, if you will, that there's magnets in the tips of the fingers drawing together, and just watch intently in the space.
Now anyone, if they're fully participating with the suggestions going along, his focus down there in between the fingers, the space, he's got the physical tension in his arms, his chest, he's pushing in on his hands, his fingers are naturally going to want to close. The cool thing is, this chap in this case doesn't realize that. However, as he's going through the process and he's feeling the compulsion, the desire by his fingers naturally from the tension and physiological components involved, and the suggestions that there's magnets at the tip of his fingers basically pulling the two of them together, that the fingers are going to close. And when they do, bingo, we have the first big convincer for the guy.
And you can even try to push them apart, but you find you cannot.
Now, as he has the old instruction of try, but you cannot, sets that up. At the same time, he introduces a level of distraction. Wayne is spinning his fingers around the tips of the subject's fingers, and at that time creating the idea that there's a magnetic force field or something that's pulling the two together. If you've ever done any of the arm tests where you have somebody hold a positive, powerful idea in their mind, they focus on that and they put their arm out and you do an arm test, you'll find typically it holds strong. If you have the same person do a test but with a distracted thought or something that they consider something bad or a weakness for them, typically their hands will go weak much faster. Similar concept in this case, where our subject is actually so focused on the hands and the magnets and the physiological components and the distraction, all of these things are building up, that's going to make it very difficult for him doing anything other than his fingers closing.
And I can just imagine, and you can imagine, a little vice, just bring them together so they completely touch. Did you fight that? Try another one.
Now right now it's the first big convincer for the guy. The guy's gone, something's just happened, I didn't expect that. Again, in terms of a sequence point of view, Wayne hasn't gone straight in with trying to do the most glamorous demo from the point of view of your feet are stuck to the ground or your hand is stuck to your side or any of that stuff. He's built up and he's layered up the suggestions, and also making sure that he's got really good compliance with this subject, that the guy is actually following his suggestions.
Undo your hands, put your hands out in front of you, put the palm up, just that one. Okay, fantastic. And just imagine, and close your eyes because your imagination is very, very powerful. And what we might imagine here in this hand is a couple of bricks. So there's a couple of bricks in this right hand, and just feel the weight of the bricks in that right hand.
Now here's a standard in terms of suggestibility test again, as they say it, but it's actually acting as a convincer for this guy. Interestingly, as you'll notice at the start, when he says to him in terms of imagine the bricks there, and he asked him, you know, you've lifted bricks before, you know what that's like, and the guy nods his head. All of that is looking to get him to associate into and experience this idea of there's really are bricks in his hand. He can feel the weight of the heaviness of the bricks pushing down on that hand, and it becomes heavier and heavier. And you'll notice that initially there's not a huge amount of change in this guy's hand. However, when he starts introducing the helium balloons and creates a contrast between the lightness and the heaviness, and gives very specific instructions of what he wants him to do, rather than a generic, you're feeling the weight in your hand, but your hand is going down and down. That's right, move it further, it's going, etc. All of that is creating the effect that this guy is going to notice, particularly when he opens his eyes.
How heavy they are. You've picked up bricks before. You know how heavy they are. I'm going to put another one on.
So he's just building up the bricks bit there, and he's had some effect on that. Now he's working on the helium balloons.
this hand just lifting higher, higher. Just feel the weightlessness of those balloons lifting higher and higher. While in this hand you can feel the bricks. I'm going to add another brick to this for you. And you can just feel the weight and just pushing it down, 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 down.
At this point, there's a good contrast between the two, between the helium balloons and obviously the weight. And a big part of that is this chap literally taking on the suggestions. If the guy had not participated, if he hadn't the previous convincers, and you just said to a guy, here's the bricks and here's the hands, the amount of difference would probably be a lot less, and for some people it would be near nothing. Now, it really comes down to the setup, and Wayne's done a very good job in his setup and building in terms of, for this guy, this idea that the bricks really are there. There's a weight there and the balloons are becoming lighter. And from a somatic sensory cortex perspective, what this guy will notice in terms of his spatial awareness, he's going to begin to feel that there actually is a difference between the two. And the more that he's noticed that, and the more he internalizes that, and follows Wayne's direct commands at this point, going down and down and down, the more he's going to get the result.
Further and further, and yet in this other hand you can feel the helium balloons lifting higher, higher and higher. That's right.
And of course the wind being created, if you will, in terms of just the movement, the energy and any feeling of air that's going to happen when Wayne is raising his hand, pointing at the subject's hand, is going to create the experience that in fact his hand is getting lighter and going higher and higher and higher.
You just open your eyes, and that's just been your own suggestions there. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Okay. That was just from suggestion. So let's try something else. Are you up for this? Yeah.
So he mentions there in terms of his own suggestions, and he's right, these really are his own suggestions. Well, the suggestions that Wayne gave that then he internalized and acted upon, rather than the hypnotist having the one with the power. In this case, Wayne is given some clear commands, a clear instruction set, and the subject has followed that.
So I'll just get you to stand over here a little bit so everyone else can see. Just put your feet shoulder width apart. That's it. And just look at me. Just look at me. Right.
Okay, now we join Wayne where he's doing the third phase, if you will, and this is having the guy look straight into his eyes. He's already built up a lot of compliance with this guy, and the guy has had plenty of convincers. He's had confirmations that something has indeed happened, not once but twice, where there's been very clear results of something going on.
My eyes. You got that? Fantastic. Sleep now. And just imagine yourself going deep.
Now we see the chap here, he goes straight into the sleep now. He started off with put your feet wide. Now if you put your feet wide and you actually try this out, where you step and you have your feet shoulder width apart or a little bit more, you'll find you can easily move back and forth. The fulcrum, if you will, can easily, as soon as Wayne puts his hand on the guy's shoulders and pulls him forward, the guy's naturally going to lean in and do this dramatic thing of seeming to fall into Wayne's shoulder, and he's out. However, the guy isn't out cold, so to speak. He is aware most likely in terms of what's going on around him. You see there's an initial smile. He's participating, going along with it. And now Wayne is going to repeat this several times, where he gets him to open his eyes and then bang, you're asleep.
Deeper and deeper in this beautiful relax. Just going all the way down, deeper and deeper. Just feeling it. Okay, so you felt some relaxation there? Fantastic. Sleep now.
And he's set up the response, the anchors automatically for this process to repeat. We've missed a bit in between where he was giving us some suggestions and commands. We don't know what that was, but it looks to have been the similar process of applying a deepener, if you will, that relaxation going further, you're relaxing even more further, and probably set up something along the lines of, and when I touch you on the back of the head again, you'll find that naturally you can quickly go back into that wonderful deep relaxing state. Open your eyes and then bang, we have him do it again.
That's it. Just go deeper and deeper, 10 times deeper than you were before. Fantastic. And that's so good, isn't it? It feels really sweet. Let's get stand up, open your eyes, and whenever I say sleep now, you go incredibly, deeply, profoundly relaxed. Stand up. Okay. You feel that relaxation? Just going right through your body. Yeah? Sleep.
And straight away he now has the word conditioned, the response conditioned in with the subject. Sleep now, it's all pretty straightforward at that point. The guy is put in his hands, if you will. And so now we can move forward to the next part of the process. So basically after that he continues on repeats it several times where he's got very good compliance going on with the chap, and now he's going to go for the grand finale, which is to get this guy to have his hand essentially attached to his side.
Cannot be moved. Just try in a moment, but you won't be able to move it.
So he sets up the whole suggestions at this point while the guy is in this deeply relaxing trance state, and building on the suggestions of that your hand is going to be like a single piece of wood, it's attached to your side, you won't be able to move it, even if you try you'll fail, etc. And at this point the guy is most certainly going to follow along in terms of with that, because he's in an altered state where his attention has been fixated and focused on the communication happening between the two of them, and most importantly the experience of, in his mind, in this case, of following those suggestions and the effects that it's having.
This hand is completely glued to your body, and in fact it feels like it's almost melded from carved from one piece of wood.
So again, using both metaphorical communication and representations, instructing the subject how he wants him to perceive. And remember, at this point the subject is going to be hyper attentive in terms of the instructions that he was receiving, and he's in a deeply relaxed, altered state, and he's ready to continue.
So that your hip and your hand are made completely from one piece of wood. So in a moment, stand up, open your eyes, and you'll be amazed. You can try, but you cannot move this right hand. Stand up now, and how'd you go? Yeah? Great. What's wrong? Why aren't you going to shake my hand? That's okay. That's okay. Now the hand's completely relaxed.
And Wayne finishes off by, at this point, the guy's smiling. He feels he can't move his hand. He actually could. It's just a question of the suggestion that he was operating under, the belief that he had at that point that he literally couldn't move, and as a consequence was then unable to move. And Wayne sees him looking down, uses the opportunity to knock him back into trance, take the suggestion off rather than pushing it potentially, and the guy eventually realizing that actually he could move his hand. So you've got a good overview in terms of the process here of what's been going on. The big idea I want you to come away from all of this is that trance and hypnotic trance, whether it's street hypnosis, stage hypnosis, there's a lot of other things going on under the hood that typically you do not know about unless you've been trained in some specific thing and you're able to look for the pattern in terms of how he, in this case, he was building up, starting with that something is going to happen, setting a frame where it was acceptable for the guy to play along, to try it out and to succeed. And as soon as that happens, something just did happen and the guy's attention was fixated and focused, and then it was a matter of building on that, getting many more convincers down, strong bond between the two of them in terms of response to the commands, and then being able to close out with the grand finale. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. You know, hypnosis is one of those things that has intrigue linked with it. The possibility of power, of being able to control someone else, is something that a lot of people are drawn to. The actual process and mechanisms is very easy and straightforward, and what you've seen here is what I'd call traditional hypnosis, using deepeners, speaking to the unconscious mind, if you will, and going through a step-by-step process to produce specific effects. What you're going to see in terms of the upcoming emails is how you're able to use this kind of tech, but in everyday conversational contexts where you don't need to say to somebody about you're getting deeper and you can listen to the sound of my voice and all of that. Now, that type of hypnosis, traditional hypnosis, has its place and it's really cool in certain contexts. However, being able to use hypnosis in everyday contexts gives you a lot more opportunity to be able to use this tool for wonderful effect. Okay, I'll speak with you again soon.